It's the most wonderful time of the year. Well, that is if you're a normal person. If you're a certain kind of liberal, then you might be upset about it, or at the very least, concerned about it. Christmas, arguably the most popular holiday around the world, might not be inclusive enough for some people. The left often mocks the war on Christmas every year while they wage the war. It's a gaslighting tactic. And like most fronts in the culture war, the left's attacks on Christmas started small and weren't seen as a threat that would have any effect, but they relentlessly persisted. And the trickle turned into a flood. Now the Satanic Temple, an anti-Christian hate group, desecrates Christmas displays set up on public property by installing their own satanic-themed displays right next to them every December under threats of lawsuits against local and state governments if they're not allowed to, claiming that forbidding their supposed Christmas displays would be a violation of the First Amendment. Of course, if they targeted any Jewish holiday, the ADL would freak out and have them banned from social media, payment processors, and apps like Venmo and PayPal to cut off their funding for being a hate group. But it's acceptable to hate Christians in an attempt to desecrate our holidays. As part of the Marxist propaganda aiming to destroy American culture, leftists are working to undermine almost every national holiday. But since Christmas is a Christian holiday, despite it being mostly secularized for generations, some are extremely upset about it because of its origins and underlying meaning. The name itself is derived from Christ's Mass, marking the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. But despite the holiday being more about Santa Claus than it is about celebrating the birth of Jesus these days, leftists still hate the holiday because its Christian roots will never be forgotten. It's not inclusive enough, they say, and it might marginalize Jews, Muslims, and atheists. An anti-Christian screed written in the Washington Post by a Jewish woman, a gyno, a Jew in name only. Those are the secular, liberal, atheist, non-practicing Jews, not to be confused with the Orthodox Jews, the ones who believe in God. She starts off her complaint saying, quote, "Please don't wish me a Merry Christmas. It's impolite and alienating to assume I follow your religion." She goes on to whine, "It is everywhere for over a month in a way that no other holiday is, not even Easter. It is in every ad, in every window and doorway, and on everyone's lips." As a Jew, she says, a gyno, she's not going to synagogue, she just identifies as a Jew ethnically, not religiously. As a Jew, she says, it's uncomfortable, weird, exhausting, and makes her feel like a stranger in my own land. Well, that's interesting because this isn't Israel. This is America. She goes on, quote, "Despite the movies and the shopping, despite the Germanic decor, Christmas is still at its core, and by design, about the birth of Christ. Whenever I hear the name, I hear the Christ in it," she says, and she doesn't want to, quote, "be reminded 1,000 times every winter." That's what she wrote. She doesn't want to be reminded of it 1,000 times every year. Well, boo-hoo. Most atheist Gentiles enjoy Christmas, decorate their homes each year, buy presents for their loved ones, and gather for Christmas dinner. They're not the ones complaining about Christmas. Except for a few rare militant ones who are actually just Satanists in disguise and hate everything about life. Buddhists aren't offended by being told Merry Christmas. Neither are Hindus, Sikhs, or Zoroastrians. Muslims aren't offended by it either because in Islam they believe that Jesus was a prophet and they believe in the virgin birth. Muslims just don't believe that he was God in the flesh, so they're not bothered by Christians celebrating Jesus' symbolic birthday. But an NBC News article written by a gyno complains that, quote, "December in America is a constant onslaught of Christmas culture. Every store gets decked out in Christmas finery and puts carols on full blast, seemingly believing that it encourages shopping. Television shows that normally avoid any discussion of anything approaching religious observance suddenly get into the spirit, devoting extra long episodes to stories about the generous spirit inspired by this time of year." It goes on to say that ostensibly secular offices and schools are suddenly awash in Santas and sleighs and reindeer, and it would be bad enough if this aggressive Christmas assault were purely the domain of the rabid right wing. But the truth is, she says, liberals, even the ones who ostensibly embrace religious diversity, can be just as bad as their conservative counterparts when it comes to enforcing the oppressive Christmas climate. What she means is Christmas is oppressive to the Jews, which she herself is one, including the typical gyno preface as a Jew in her tirade. To be clear, a gyno, like I said, is a Jew in name only, in the same vein as a rhino, a Republican in name only. They're the liberal, atheist, secular, non-practicing Jews, as opposed to the Orthodox Jews, who are the ones who believe in God and are religious Jews, who follow Judaism, the religion of the Old Testament. Well, I guess technically they're following Rabbinic Judaism, which is based on the Talmud, but that's a whole other story. Basically, Orthodox Jews are the conservative ones. And while Orthodox Jews don't celebrate Christmas either, they're not usually hostile about it or actively opposed to it being such a major part of American culture. Over in Israel, that's a whole other issue and a whole other can of worms you're not supposed to talk about. But despite American Orthodox Jews' differences with Christians, specifically over Jesus, they do share many of the same values as Christians. They're conservative. They believe in God and the Ten Commandments, traditional family values. They're not down with LGBTQism or same-sex marriage, whereas Ginos are typically liberal atheists who still identify as Jews ethnically or racially, but not religiously. Most people don't know this. Most Christians don't even know this, and you're not going to hear about it on Fox News. It is detailed in my new book, however. Lots of good stuff in there, you'll see. And I've gotten some great feedback from Orthodox Jews who've read it. Despite our differences, they appreciate me not lumping all Jews into one category, because that's not fair. And I'm curious, if you're Jewish, what you think of this video. So leave a comment down in the description below. But anyway, the NBC News report, written by the Gino, concludes that we should, quote, take a long, hard look at the way Christmas is used to send the message that America is a nation primarily for Christians. Well, we are primarily a Christian nation. While not a theocracy, it is the dominant religion in the country, and has been ever since our nation's founding. If you have a problem with that, then maybe you should move to a different country. But there's more going on here than just a small but vocal demographic of Christian phobes getting offended that Christmas is an intricate part of American culture. Santa is now seen as a symbol of white supremacy and white privilege by many liberals who say it makes black children feel ostracized. So there are increasing calls to depict Santa as a penguin instead of jolly old Saint Nick to be more inclusive.
I think that the world has changed a lot over the last 50, 100 years. And for kids, I think it's important that they don't have to feel necessarily bogged down that Santa is always white, and that's the way he should be.
Notice Asian children don't care, or Asian parents, or Hispanics, Arabs, or Indians. They're not clamoring for an Arab Santa Claus. Mexicans don't want Santa to wear a sombrero, but Santa being a white man makes it hard for black children to connect to him, they say. So now you're seeing black Santa Claus figurines everywhere and apps so that black parents can find a black Santa Claus in their city to bring their children to. And Target just released a black Santa in a wheelchair ornament, trying to make Santa more appealing to black disabled children, apparently. This is not a joke, by the way, although I did buy one as a gag gift that I'm going to give to some friends this year, because I do find it hilarious. But it wasn't made as a gag gift. This was made to be woke. What's not funny, though, is a webinar put together by the ADL, a Gino organization, aimed at public school teachers, where they complain about arts and crafts projects, where teachers have students draw pictures of Santa Claus.
Santa Claus is not considered to be a religious symbol for constitutional purposes. So asking students to draw a picture of something that's not deemed religious is constitutional. But I'm sure Michelle has a lot to say about why, even though this is technically constitutional, why an assignment like this is nonetheless problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of the constitutionality, when we're thinking about a respectful school environment, I think there are a lot of red flags that we see in this scenario. Not everyone, celebrates Christmas. Not everyone believes in, a Santa Claus or has that sort of celebration. So it's really important that when we're creating assignments, we're thinking about who's in our classroom, what is the message that we're sending?
There could be something simpler, which is just, instead of asking students to paint anything specifically, draw something draw someone who's important to you, or something that's important to you. And some kids might draw Santa, some kids might draw their grandparent. That's much simpler.
It's a problem to the ADL that kids draw pictures of Santa in school. And if that's not bad enough, a children's book titled Santa's Husband was published, which depicts Santa as gay and married to a black man. A book written by a Gino who, of course, doesn't celebrate Christmas. He just wrote it to denigrate our holiday. And of course, CNN praised the book.
A holiday children's book tells the story of Santa Claus with a fresh new twist.
We have the author and the illustrator here with us live to talk about their new book, Santa's Husband. And it's out now, available everywhere, actually.
Can you imagine the outcry if somebody wrote a book ridiculing a Jewish holiday? Chuck Schumer would literally give a speech on the floor of the Senate, and Republicans would join him, and Congress would pass a joint resolution denouncing it. Amazon already bans books that the ADL flags as supposedly anti-Semitic. Amazon has banned a lot of books in the last few years, something I detail in my new book, The War on Conservatives, which you should order, ironically, from Amazon before they ban it. Link in the description below. All they wanted was the right to get married, they said, but now they're upset Santa isn't gay. So Target sells a Santa figurine waving a pride flag, ironically a nutcracker one too. And now we see television commercials like this one from Ritz Crackers featuring a gay, gender non-binary black man wearing lipstick who is welcomed to dinner by his white boyfriend's family. There are other ones, but I'll spare you the cringe. After the Santa Clauses TV miniseries starring Tim Allen came out on the Disney Plus streaming service, a film critic named Scott Weinberg complained that Tim Allen, who plays Santa, has a line where he laments saying Merry Christmas to all has suddenly become problematic, thus proving the character's point. Quote, "It just struck me as a truly weird thing to put in a kid's series," Weinberg said. "Someone wants to stop us from saying Merry Christmas is not some random campaign. It's a low-key effort to vilify anyone who doesn't celebrate this holiday," he concluded. After he was widely mocked on Twitter, he then cried that he was the victim of anti-Semitism. Typical. Christmas represents everything that we're trying to preserve in America. Family, tradition, capitalism, and most importantly, Christ. All things the left vehemently hates. And so they deem it a microaggression to even say Merry Christmas to someone now. Starting in 2017, the DC Metro, the government agency that oversees the public transportation like buses and other rapid transit systems, banned any Christmas ads on or in Washington, D.C. buses that mention Jesus, God, or Christianity. So no more Jesus is the reason for the season or keep Christ in Christmas posters allowed. And now each year, numerous universities across America struggle with allowing faculty and students to hold Christmas parties out of concerns that they'll offend non-Christians who think the holiday is marginalizing. They post sections on their websites urging people to be culturally sensitive in December and saying things like displays that feature exclusively single-themed decorations, meaning Christmas, may be well-intentioned, but they can marginalize those who celebrate other religious and cultural beliefs during this season. Many schools suggest not doing a Secret Santa gift exchange either. The universities don't want the faculty to put up any Christmas decorations that have any religious connotations. So no baby Jesus in a manger, only secular ones like snowmen or snow people rather, because you're not supposed to assume a snowman's gender anymore. Of course, they would never complain if a faculty member put up a menorah. They're only talking about Christian symbols. Would Buddhists in India or Taoists from China who emigrated to a predominantly Muslim country like Saudi Arabia or Pakistan send memos out urging people not to celebrate Ramadan or Eid al-Fitr because it might not be inclusive enough for them? Would Catholics from Ireland or Protestant Christians from Britain who were working in Israel ask colleagues in that country not to celebrate Jewish holidays or avoid using any religious symbols during popular celebrations there because it wouldn't be inclusive enough for non-Jews? Would Christians living in India complain about Hindu symbols being displayed for the celebration of Diwali, the Festival of Lights, one of the most popular celebrations in the country every year? Of course not. But those who are hostile to Christmas are aided by the brand name liberal media outlets every year, which amplify their attacks on Christian celebrations in America. And it's time that people stop giving in to the demands of a small minority who don't want to assimilate and enjoy the biggest holiday around the world. Hey, somebody had to say it, but I have a lot more to say in my new book, The War on Conservatives. It may be too late now to get it in time for Christmas, but with Amazon Prime same day or next day shipping in some areas, maybe you could. You'll have to double check. So order it in paperback from Amazon.com if you're a slacker, and give it to someone as a gift who you want to help wake up, and get a copy for yourself, because if you like watching my videos, you're really gonna love reading my book. These videos are just the appetizers. The full 4-course meal is in the book. So head on over to Amazon.com or click the link in the description below. Have a Merry Christmas and check it out.